What if the price of power wasn't just blood, but your very soul? If you think royal life in ancient Egypt meant luxury, elegance, and divine status, think again. Behind the gold masks and marble temples lay a world of betrayal, incest, and manipulation so dark it could rival any modern thriller. This is the story of Arsinoe II, queen, goddess, sister, and pawn, forced into dynastic marriages that defied morality, accused of sleeping with her own brothers, and possibly violated by the man who gave her life, her father. Arsinoe's story is one of survival in a world where family was the deadliest weapon. If history remembers Cleopatra VII as the seductress, then Arsinoe II was the blueprint, shaped not by choice but by the crushing expectations of empire. If you're new here, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more unsettling truths from the pages of history. And stay with us because this story will make you question everything you thought you knew about royalty. Born around 316 BCE in Egypt, Arsinoe II was a daughter of Ptolemy II, one of Alexander the Great's generals, and the founder of the Ptolemaic dynasty. On the surface, her birth placed her among the most powerful elite in the Mediterranean world. But Ptolemaic royalty came with an unbearable price tag. Your body, your blood, and your legacy were never truly your own. Raised in Alexandria, Arsinoe was steeped in Greek philosophy, military ambition, and the divine propaganda of the Ptolemies. She was taught that her family was descended from gods, but in private, this divinity masked disturbing practices. Incest was encouraged, arranged marriages were political weapons, and daughters were traded like currency. Her earliest years were defined not by childhood innocence, but by calculated grooming for royal duty. As she approached adolescence, her father began preparing her for her first marriage, not based on love, but on strategy. Whispers even suggest that the grooming crossed unimaginable lines, casting a sinister shadow over her childhood that she could never escape. Arsinoe's first marriage came not in celebration, but in calculation. At just 15, she was sent to marry Lysimachus, an aging warlord nearly 5 times her age and one of her father's former allies. It was a political alliance meant to strengthen her family's grip across the fractured Hellenistic world. But behind the gilded doors of Lysimachus's court, Arsinoe found herself alone. She was no queen in control. She was a teenager trapped in the court of a man known for his ruthlessness. Her new husband had already executed his own son. Arsinoe knew that one wrong move could cost her everything. So she did what many royal women were forced to do: adapt, charm, and survive. They had children, 3 sons, but love was never part of the equation. And when Lysimachus began favoring another heir, Arsinoe's instinct for self-preservation kicked in. Historical accounts suggest she may have orchestrated a deadly palace coup, whispering poison into Lysimachus's ear that led to a rival prince's execution. Her first betrayal had begun, not just of others, but of herself. Whatever innocence remained from her youth was gone, sacrificed to a game she could never truly win. After Lysimachus's sudden death in battle, Arsinoe's world collapsed. Her sons were still young, too young to protect her, and now with no husband and no throne, she was vulnerable. Desperate to hold on to power, she made a calculated move that still shocks historians. She married her half-brother, Ptolemy Coronos. Not for love, but survival. Ptolemy was violent, unstable, and power-hungry. Within months, Arsinoe's gamble turned fatal. He murdered 2 of her sons in cold blood, children, just to erase any challenge to his throne. Arsinoe barely escaped with her life, fleeing to Egypt, with her remaining child hidden away. There, she found sanctuary in Alexandria, but peace would not last. Another brother waited in Egypt, Ptolemy II, already married, already ruling. Yet history took another dark turn. Arsinoe would become his queen and his wife. Whether it was forced, political, or something more disturbing, no one knows for certain, but together they declared their union divine, styling themselves as the new Isis and Osiris. This was no myth, it was propaganda. And behind the divine titles was a woman who had lost nearly everything and was willing to do anything to never lose again. By the time Arsinoe II became Queen of Egypt, she was no longer a victim, she was a strategist. Her marriage to her brother Ptolemy II may have shocked outsiders, but within Egypt, it was framed as divine destiny. The people were told that their rulers were gods incarnate, Isis and Osiris reborn. What few saw was that Arsinoe was not merely a queen consort, she was pulling the strings. Ptolemy II was a scholar, a lover of books and comfort, not war or politics. Arsinoe, hardened by betrayal and loss, became the real architect of their reign. She surrounded herself with loyal advisors, placed spies in court, and helped craft policies that strengthened royal authority and secured Egypt's borders. But power never came without cost. Arsinoe's influence bred paranoia. She began purging rivals, including members of her own extended family. Anyone who remembered the girl she once was, the frightened princess traded off in marriage, was now long gone. What remained was a woman who had turned survival into a throne, loss into strategy, and blood into policy. Her reign was one of brilliance, but also quiet cruelty, masked by gold and incense. She was no longer the pawn, she was the player. Arsinoe II had risen from political pawn to queen regent, from exiled widow to co-ruler of one of the ancient world's most powerful empires. But even goddesses must die. Her death came suddenly, and the true cause remains a mystery. Some say illness, others whisper darker rumors: poison, assassination, or divine punishment. What's certain is this: Egypt mourned her not just as a queen, but as a deity. Ptolemy II, ever under her shadow, declared her a living goddess after her passing, elevating her to divine status with temples, festivals, and statues throughout the empire. But the worship of Arsinoe II wasn't just about grief, it was political. Her image, regal, divine, untouchable, was weaponized to maintain control. The cult of Arsinoe became a tool to legitimize the Ptolemaic dynasty, reinforcing the idea that their bloodline was more than royal. It was sacred. Behind the marble statues and gilded temples, though, was a woman who had fought for every ounce of power, endured every indignity, and died knowing she'd rewritten the rules of her world. Her divinity was earned not by birth, but by blood, strategy, and survival. Arsinoe II was dead, but the myth she created would outlive empires. Centuries after her death, Arsinoe II's face still stared from coins, her name etched in stone, her memory preserved not by poets, but by propaganda. Her image became a symbol of strength, unity, and divine power. Cities were named in her honor. Temples dedicated to her cult dotted the Egyptian landscape. She was worshipped as a goddess, a sister wife, a protector of kings. But behind that marble legacy lies a darker truth. Arsinoe's rise was forged through trauma. Her story is not just one of power, but of survival in a world that consumed women like her. She was married off as a child, betrayed by her first husband, exiled, manipulated, and yet she returned, not to bow to power, but to become it. And that's what makes her legacy so haunting. She didn't just navigate a system built to break her, she mastered it, and in doing so, helped shape the Ptolemaic dynasty's mythos. But her story also reminds us how easily trauma can become tradition, how control can be mistaken for worship, and how history often paints queens as goddesses long after it silences their screams. Arsinoe II lives on, not just in stone, but in the shadows of every woman forced to rise through the fire. History doesn't always come wrapped in gold and glory. Sometimes it's laced with silence, sacrifice, and the scars left behind by power. If Arsinoe II's story moved you, shocked you, or made you think differently about the women who shaped empires, I invite you to dive deeper with us. Hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next untold chapter of history's darkest corners. And if there's a forgotten figure or twisted tale you'd like to see uncovered, Drop it in the comments below. Thank you, and see you in the next episode of Dark Lore.